Welcome to the Bowel Chronicles, where we dive deep into the world of bowel health. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and on this podcast we have raw and candid conversations with individuals facing various bowel conditions and illnesses. Through personal stories and shared experiences, we illuminate resilience and courage in the face of adversity. Be reminded that each story is personal and unique. These conversations are not to be taken as medical advice or to replace guidance from a doctor or healthcare provider. Our aim is to inspire and empower through these amazing stories, amplifying voices often unheard. So join us as we embark on this journey together. Sit back, listen, and be inspired. Enjoy the episode. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Bowel Chronicles. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and today we are joined by the awesome Chris Morrison from Derry, and some of you might actually recognise that he is also the firefighter with a Stoma. Chris, it's so good to have you here today.
Hi, Nikki. How are you? It's good to meet you.
It's good to have you here to share some of your story with us today. So, Chris, you've been living with a colostomy
Yes.
for 7 years, 7.5 years now.
7.5, yep.
Maybe you could start by sharing a little bit of your journey. Had you been suffering with a debilitating bowel condition of some sort? What led to you having your colostomy?
Well, let me think back. It was about this time, and in fact, it was about this time 8 years ago, Nikki. And obviously, I've been a firefighter now for 31 years, just past. And you take it back 8 years ago, so I had 23 years in the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service. I was the fittest I had ever been. I had really got the bug for running and jogging, and I had been doing, I'd been doing 5Ks, and I was stretching out to 10Ks, and I was aiming to do a half marathon later that year.
Mhm.
And it was about the May time, 2016. Whenever I went to the toilet, you would notice some blood whenever you wipe, and
Right.
you just think, being a typical man, you just say, oh, it's only hemorrhoids, and, bury your head in the sand and they'll go away, get a wee bit of preparation hitch. But it carried on and carried on, and the bleeding then became a lump, and the lump became bigger, and the blood became more and more. And it went on until about the July time. And myself, my wife, and our son was only 10 then. We went away on a wee hotel break for a couple of days. And as we were in the swimming pool, my wife swam up beside me and says, "You're going to the hospital. You're going to the doctor when we get home. You've lost a lot of weight, and I've noticed the blood." Me thinking I've cleaned it all away. She says, "No, I've noticed it all, and no, I'll get you to the doctor on Monday morning." So I phoned my doctor and went on to see him. And as I'm telling the doctor my symptoms, he's sitting behind a desk. So there's this automatic barrier for a start. So
Mhm.
he's sitting behind the desk, and as I'm telling him my symptoms, he's just sitting typing and looking at his computer screen. And he says, "Right, go behind the curtain and we'll do a wee examination." So I was getting myself ready. I dropped the trousers, was ready to get up onto the bed, and was waiting to hear the snap of the rubber glove and the KY jelly. And he says, "No, no, no." He says, "Just stand up there." And he literally just walked over and parted the cheeks of my bum like that and let them go, and says, "That's okay," and walked back to his desk. So I left his office that day with a prescription for laxatives and a referral to the hemorrhoid clinic. And he says, if the laxatives cleared up the hemorrhoids, I wouldn't have to go to the hemorrhoid clinic. Now, bear in mind then, I was a man who was 46 years of age, presenting with bleeding and a pronounced lump, after I had gone to the toilet. And there were no red flags at all for him. It should have been a straight red flag referral over to the hospital. So me being the trusting person that I was, believed my doctor and just went on about things. And that stretched on then until about the October time. And I was sitting at work and one day, and I got to about 11 o'clock, and I had been noticing for a few weeks that I had been becoming more and more fatigued, more and more tired.
Mhm.
Climbing stairs was getting difficult. I'd come back from fire calls at night, and I'd climbing the stairs, and my heart would be pounding in my chest for about a good half hour, 45 minutes.
Mm.
And just this one day, nope, I had enough. And I said to my boss, "Look, Jim," I says, "I've had enough. I need to go home. I'm not well." and you can see the color of the wall behind me, Nikki. That's the color I was.
Wow.
We can see now I'm quite swarthy and stuff, but
Yeah.
that's the color I was on that day.
Mhm.
So the next day, I got an emergency appointment with the GP and went in, and it was a locum GP this time. And my wife came along with me, and as I'm telling her my symptoms, my wife reaches under her handbag and pushes a picture across the desk and says, "That was him 6 months ago." And the doctor physically recoiled in her seat. So the next thing was she took a load of blood tests. And 4 o'clock that afternoon, I got a phone call. Mr. Morrison, I need you to go to the hospital. Call on here and get a letter, and don't drive. So I was admitted to Elton Galvin Hospital. I was on 9 days, and they found a massive tumor in my bowel and rectum. Um,
Wow.
and I was released after 9 days. And 6 weeks after that, I had my surgery. They have my colostomy.
So you went from having this supposed pile or hemorrhoid,
Uh-huh.
take this laxative, take this cream, that continued. You were in pain, you started to feel fatigued by it, you generally felt unwell. Your wife had seen this dramatic decline over
Mm-hmm.
this 6 month period. You're pointing to the wall there behind you. The wall, just for our listeners, if you're not watching on video, the wall is very, very white. And Chris, I have met you in person. You're quite a swarthy person. So you looked really, really unwell, and I've seen a few photographs of you prior to your surgery, and my goodness, you're it's like day and night. You're a different guy,
Mm-hmm.
completely different. And so this doctor, who's very on the ball then and observant and listens to your wife as she pleads your case, refers you across to the hospital for more tests to be looked at, and they discover what is a massive tumor inside your bowel.
Yeah.
How did you feel right at that moment in time, Chris?
Hey, words can't describe that one, Nicky. It's the same. I'm sure everybody that gets that, hey, we've found a tumor,
Mhm.
and all sorts goes through your head because they can't confirm until they get the biopsies back. They
Yeah.
can't confirm, if it's nasty or what it is or what it is that's caused it. I was lucky. I was very, very lucky. It took until the tumor actually had to be removed before they could get biopsies done on it. But the results came back very well for me. It was non-cancerous, um, but it was showing some high-grade dysplasia. So it was
Right.
literally, very quickly going to turn into a cancerous tumor. So, I got away with it. But as you say, that the news is devastating at the time. I remember sitting in a room with my wife and a consultant and another doctor, and we're going, right, well, what do we do? What do we? And they couldn't answer because obviously this is, look, we don't know what your treatment's going to be because we don't know what this tumor is. We have to investigate it. So that's when I was referred to the 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 stoma surgeon. After that, now it was 6 weeks between my first admission to hospital and my stoma surgery. I did spend another week in hospital thanks to a massive bleed on Halloween night. And that was funny because that was in the week up to my 47th birthday. And I'm lying in hospital, and they're saying, "Look, Chris, we're going to try and get you out on Friday. My birthday was on the Saturday. We're going to try and get you out on the Friday, but we also want this procedure done. And if we get it booked for Monday morning, we're going to keep you on." And I'm going, "No, this could be my last birthday ever." I need to go out and celebrate. You're not keeping me on. You're not keeping me in hospital over my birthday. But thankfully, they let me go and things, and we went out and celebrated. And it was 2 weeks after that then that I had my surgery for the colostomy.
And do you
It's
think, the period from when you had first seen the doctor and he sent you away with this treatment for hemorrhoids until seeing that second doctor in the hospital, do you like, was there any feeling of growth? Could you tell that the tumor was getting bigger? Was there
why.
any other symptoms, or indications?
Well, apart from the bleeding, Nikki, and there was a lot of bleeding, and you could actually feel the lump getting bigger. At the start, the lump would have just gone back on itself, and then towards the end, the last month or so, you were actually having to physically push the lump back on, and that's when me myself. And that's where I sort of blame myself too, because you know, being a typical man, um, men, Nikki, men don't like talking about intimate health issues.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Men do not like talking about intimate health issues. I'll tell you all the crap of the day about them now. You know, a lot of people say to me now that Chris, you talk an awful lot of shit, and I would say I do. I do actually talk an awful lot about shit, and I do talk an awful lot of shit. But it's that thing about getting men, and they get men, they realize that their health is their wealth, Nikki, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, men ignore all these things, and I was one of them at the time. Men ignore all these symptoms and think, oh, they'll just go away, they'll just go away, they'll just go away. And then sometimes the women get involved and say, hey, go get yourself sorted. Because
Mm.
the number of times I hear from the missus, I saved your life. You know,
And rightly so.
and rightly so. But you know what? And see the number of guys that have come to me afterwards, especially around the fire station. Being a firefighter, obviously, it's you know, it's a rough, tough job. It's very male orientated at the minute. You know, there are a lot of women in the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service, but we are predominantly a male service. And see, they have one or two guys come up to me in corridors on different fire stations and say, Chris, look, I went and got myself checked out when I heard your story.
Yeah.
And you know, that's, you know, I know that I'm doing some good out there.
You're making a huge impact, like, because we're talking about something starting out that presented as a hemorrhoid and
Mm-hmm.
that progressed much, much more. And I know that you are a family man, and I think there's this thing around the persona of a family man, and you've been in your job as a fireman for 31 years. 31 years service is a long time. And you have provided for your family, looked after your children and your wife, and really, like, what happens if you're not in your best health? You're of no use to anyone.
Well, that's it. And when we first had obviously we had the 9 days in hospital, then you know, there were the consultations then with the surgeon in between times. And that was the first time I had ever heard about the, you know, we're going to have, and Mr. Gidwani's first words to me and the consult were, oh, this is going to be a permanent colostomy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, you know, I could see both of us physically recoil at the words. And there was a, a GI nurse in the consult with us.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, this, you don't really know anything about stomas. Now, Martina's uncle had a stoma at a time, and one of my uncles had a stoma. So there was all this vision of it being, you know, the stomas are only for old people,
Yeah.
and these visions of bags, you know, going right down your leg and things like that. And it was Gloria that after the consult, obviously, you know, the consult, Mr. Gidwani says, look, it's going to be a permanent colostomy. And we're going, right, well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So,
at that
for
time,
the
it
purpose
was,
of our audience, Chris, can we just explain what a permanent colostomy is?
well, the permanent colostomy is because they've given me the colostomy, but they've taken out everything else below it. So they've taken out my rectum and my bum hole. You know, it's all gone below there. So all I have now for collecting feces or number twos, if we want to be a wee bit more correct, is the bag. So it's permanent; it can't be reversed.
So that's part of your intestine then brought out through
Yep, through the
through
stomach
the
wall,
skin.
and you know, that's how my body gets rid of the waste.
Yeah.
So he says, look, it's going to be this permanent colostomy. And I'm going, right, hold on. I'm a family man. I had 24 years in the fire service at the time. Um, can I go back to my career? And he says, no problem. No, he says, no bother. And I was going, with a permanent colostomy, I can still be a firefighter. He says, yes, no problem. And I more or less says to him, right, I'll lie up on this table now and you do the operation. I'm going to get it done with. He's going, no, 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 no. It needs to be in an operating theatre and sterile and everything else. But Gloria knew, you know, she knew from our reaction that we didn't know anything, and Gloria was brilliant. She took us out then and in another office and brought sample bags down and let us see sample bags and take stuff away and leaflets and that.
Mm-hmm.
And then 14th of November 2016 then was the operation. I went on the night before. I was first on the list the next morning, went down to the surgery, went down to the anesthesia at 8 o'clock in the morning, and 11 hours later, and 11 hours later was woken up in recovery. So 11 hours when Mr. Gidwani had told me that it was only going to be 4 or 5. But what had happened was that there were no complications or anything like that. It's just my muscles were so compact whenever he got inside, and he wanted to keep everything keyhole for me. So he says, I could just took my time.
Right. Okay.
And we're sitting asking him questions afterwards and saying, well, how did you eat? Aki says we had a wee square of chocolate now and again. Going, what? You're lying with all this stuff inside me and eating a wee square of chocolate for 11 hours. So yeah, it was. But that's it. It's 11 hours and a permanent colostomy, and I haven't let it hold me back.
No, so let's talk about that post surgery. Did it take you a while to recover? And then let's hear some of the antics that you've been getting up to in the last 7 years.
Well, post surgery, Nikki, because I didn't realize how sick I was in the run up to the operation. I took the full 6 months.
Yeah.
That I could on the sick to recover. I went back on light duties for 6 months then too. Whenever I first went off on the sick, we set a target of, once we heard that I could go back to the red fire engines again, we set a target of 12 months to get back on them. That included going back on the light duties and a wee bit of retraining. I missed it by a month. I was 13 months. So 13 months later, I finally got my foot back in a fire engine and taking parade that first morning. I'd obviously been back in the station for a few months because I was doing light duties and I was retraining at the time. But that first day actually set my foot on the fire engines again and taking parade that morning, because at that time I was the crew commander, so I was one of the second in charge of the watch. And I took parade that morning, and having the guys welcome me back, and then within about 5 minutes of me being back, all the banter started again. And it was like I'd never been away, and people ask about being a firefighter and things like that. But the one thing about being a firefighter, you're out there helping people day in, day out. But the guys in that fire station are like a family. And people laugh at all these American programs and all that, and they are a wee bit over the top. But see, when our backs are against the wall in the fire station, if one of our guys gets sick or one of the other firefighters gets sick, it really is like a band of brothers.
Yes.
And Martina, I'll tell you the amount of phone calls she got that morning from people that were, when I was under the knife, the amount of phone calls that she got from people, they say, ask how Chris was and everything else. But we managed to get back anyway, and it took me, 2017 we were back, and then I obviously got back, and I've gained one promotion since then, and I'm currently going for another one, hopefully. Wow. So I'm currently a temporary station commander, and I've been all around Northern Ireland doing that. I've been in Belfast and Coleraine and Cookstown, and now I'm finally back in Derry doing a station commander's role. But I was sitting in the house one day, and I just happened to be scrolling through Facebook, and as you do, one of these pop-ups come up, and it was a thing for a charity trek, and I thought, that looks interesting. And then I looked at the dates and went, oh, okay, because it finished on the date of my 50th birthday. And I thought, right, let's give that a try. So, and it was for the Firefighters charity. Now, the Firefighters charity is a charity that we have, and it's basically if firefighters are injured or recovering from serious illness, they help. They take you over. They have centres over in England that can help put us back on our feet again and get us back into operational duty again. And they had been great to me too. Plus the fact that all the firefighters had been great to me as well. And I thought, right, it's time to pay back. You can't physically go out there and pay everybody back. So I thought, no, it's time to pay back. So this trek came up, and it was a 3-day trek across the Sahara Desert. And I thought, yeah, that'll do. Yeah. So I signed up. I phoned Martina. I says, look, this thing has popped up. I says, do you mind if I do it? And she went, nope, go ahead. And I thought, yep, that'll do. So 3 days trek across the Sahara Desert with my Stoma. So it was.
Yes, my chin is hitting the floor for the purposes of our viewers or listeners. I'm in total shock. Just a wee trek across.
Just a wee walk across a big beach, Nikki. So it was an experience and a half. And I used to joke about people. I was just going to do it to see if sand really does get everywhere.
And you can confirm.
Well, I can't. Yep, sand really does get everywhere. But the one thing about it was, it was really warm. It was 40 degrees every day that we were there, and we were walking on it. I had absolutely no trouble with my bags. I can confirm that. Anybody that's worried about going on holidays or going to beaches with their ostomy bags, don't worry about it. I've trekked across the Sahara Desert with mine, so yep, they're perfectly fine.
Excellent.
We climbed sand dunes, but the one thing about it was, the facilities were very, let's just say, basic. The toilet facilities.
Mm-hmm.
The toilet facilities were literally just a hole in the ground covered by a tent.
Okay.
So there were 26 of us on this trek. Obviously, I was the only one with a stoma, and everybody was very jealous of me because because they all had to use this hole in the ground, whereas all I had to do was go and find a couple of nice wee rocks sitting somewhere, and have everything laid out in front of me, and change my bag while I was watching the sunset.
Perfect. Absolute perfection.
Oh, it was brilliant. You know what? It was an experience and a half, and I finally gotten around to printing some pictures here last year and getting them up on the walls. I got some really lovely night photography shots of the Milky Way over the Sahara Desert, and I finally got to put them up on the walls here. So
What
that
an
was an
experience.
experience. Oh, it was
And
brilliant.
did you go with people that you knew, or did you go on your
No,
own?
no, I went on my own. They were all from England, and they were all representing other charities, other cancer charities over in England. I was the only firefighter. I was the only person with a stoma. I was the only person from Northern Ireland on the thing. And well, that was good crack. You know what? And we still chat away. The people who were on the trek still chat away, and it was 3 days of walking beside people, sharing stories, listening to other people's stories, shedding tears. The last day was the last day was the most emotional for me, Nikki. It was the day when everything really just boom, everything that I'd been through, everything that my family had been through, just boom, and the tears started on
Yeah.
that last day. And I was walking beside a, a girl at the time, and we had been walking side by side most of the day, and we just knew when to shut up. That way when you're walking beside somebody and somebody knows just to shut up and leave people alone. And it was just one of those things, and the tears came, and it was just boom, everything just seemed they had it once, that Jesus, I really have been through this now, and I'm out the other side. So yeah, it was an experience, and one I would highly recommend, one I'd love to do again. But we'll see. I'm always on the lookout for a good challenge.
Leave it with me. And so, no stigma attached to a stoma. It's not held you back. There are a few other things that you've done. You've done charity walks and things.
Yeah, we do. We have a family team who do what they call the legendary Relay for Life. So every year, Cancer Research UK have Relay for Life all
Mhm.
around UK, all around the UK. In fact, I think they're all around the world. So there's 24 hours. People walk constantly for 24 hours. Now over here, we go around a running track for 24 hours. There's so far this year, there's 44 teams registered. Our team's called Legs Miserable. And it's a brilliant day's crack. If nothing else, Nikki, it's a brilliant day's crack. The last few years I've been on it, I've done roughly about 40,000 steps on each of the 24 hours that we've done it. But each team has a baton, and the baton just has to stay on the track for the 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it's much the same as the desert walk. It does get quite emotional at midnight, but it's a walk to remember those that we've lost to cancer,
Yeah.
but also celebrate those that are still
Mhm.
living with cancer. And the very first parade, the very first team that lead the parade of teams around the track are all cancer survivors. And seeing the amount of people, from people in their 80s down as far as young children that are living with cancer, that are still living with cancer, and it's the same thing. 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, when the track's silent, because there's entertainment the whole day. There's bands playing on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
There's themed laps, and I'm sure you've looked at this in my social media. Last year they had a lap called the Power of Purple,
Yeah,
because purple's the cancer, the color for cancer. So I bought this big inflatable purple dinosaur suit, and I did a full hour inside it around the track, being chased around it by children and scaring the life, just running up behind people, and it was brilliant crack. I go on, people will tell you, I don't do things by halves. If I get my mind set on something, that's it. It's getting done, and that's it. So I, my wains just say, "What's my dad doing now?"
yeah, yeah. It's about making
But they just
happy
go,
people happy, isn't
"Aye,
it? And getting involved
well,
and
that's it. That's it."
representing, spreading
Aye.
awareness. I think they say there's one person diagnosed with bowel cancer, especially every 15 minutes in the UK,
Mm.
which is
It's crazy, and you know, well, especially men, but the testing for people with bowel cancer doesn't kick in until you're in your 50s.
Yeah.
And it's the push then, and what do you call her, the bowel babe, Deborah James, that died
Yeah.
last year. She did so much to raise awareness of it, but the screening age still hasn't come down. And that's it. And I would tell anybody, if you notice anything, if there's something that just feels out of sorts, go and get yourself checked.
And it's about keep pushing into that. Don't take no for an answer. If things stay the same,
Oh, that's
if
it.
things get worse, keep persevering, keep going back to the
Uh-huh.
GP, document it all, because it's in that space of time that things progress and get a lot
Yeah,
worse. That
I mean,
things don't
if
advance.
my original GP, had have acted when he did,
Mm-hmm.
I might not have ended up with a stoma. We could have got it at an earlier stage,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So it's about not being afraid to question the medical professionals. You know, Go back to them, tell them, yep, look, I'm having these symptoms. If what they give you doesn't work, go back a few weeks later and say, look, this isn't working, and should I be getting other things seen to? Um, but definitely get yourself checked out for anything that your body, if you have something in your body and you just say, here, hold on a minute, I didn't feel like this last week, and it could be something as simple as all of a sudden you're just feeling tired, and you look at the amount of you've Deborah James for one, Chadwick Boseman, was another guy who died from bowel cancer.
Yeah.
And it's so treatable. Bowel cancer, if it's caught early, is so treatable.
Mm-hmm.
So it is,
I was going to ask you if you got one final thought or one little golden nugget to leave for our audience, but I think you might have just. Is there another thought? I know, really, especially because I'm interviewing a male, but I think ladies are more inclined. I want to say females are more in tune with their body of what's going on and listening to their body
Yeah.
and taking action, and men just disregard it and just carry on with life. And I think because this episode is a male's perspective, it is so important that, for guys that are listening today, that if they notice anything at all, going off of your story, they need to take that action. They need to go
Oh,
and speak to
absolutely.
a doctor,
Yep, absolutely. Any men out there listening now, if you are noticing anything, go and get yourself checked. Don't bury your head in the sand. I mean, I mentioned earlier on about the number of guys in fire stations who have come to me and said, I have gone and got myself checked out, and they've found something at an early stage, and they've been able to get, the outcome has been so good for them, rather than, well, I've ended up with a stoma. Okay, my outcome was good. My tumor was totally benign. As I said, I had some high grade dysplasia, but I had no further treatment, so it was just a lot colostomy. That's away you go, and that's all the treatment I ever had to get. But go and get yourself checked. It's the 21st century, it's 2024. Medical treatments are out there, and men shouldn't be afraid to talk about anything below the belt.
That's right.
You know.
Well, Chris, it's been great having you here with us. For our audience and viewers, his handles will be below, tagged in the show notes. Firefighter with a Stoma. You'll find him on Instagram. Go give him a follow. He gets up to all sorts of tricks and raises awareness via his social media. Give him a follow. Give him some encouragement and support, guys. And as always, stay tuned for another episode dropping next week. Yeah, next Friday again at 9. Chris, thank you so much for joining us and
You're
taking the
welcome.
time out of your day.
Thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome.